Hey, y'all, and welcome to the Astronaut Arcade Podcast, where your space hosts, Andromeda, Ranger, and Cowboy, share stories, tips, and the latest information on anything video game related. Today, we will be discussing Radiata Stories, a game so highly anticipated and had many accolades to its name, only to inevitably be lost in anonymity. So without further ado, let's officially start the countdown to launch. Welcome back, everyone. Your new favorite podcasters are back, bringing you an exciting new episode about a game I guarantee at least 90% of our listeners will have never heard of, but was truly exceptional for its time. Before we get started, we have some exciting news we wanted to share with y'all. Our show is now available on YouTube and iHeartRadio. We were going to go with Google Podcasts as well, but unfortunately, they are discontinuing their service. You can also find us on Instagram. We'll have the links and information in the description. We've also added a few things to the Discord server, including some new channels. We now have a channel where you can show off your vehicles and projects if you're a car junkie like myself, mainly because I wanted it, but we have it. We also have a channel where we debate over whether or not Pluto is a planet. Currently, Pluto's winning.
It's not much of a debate. Pluto's a planet.
Yeah, it really is. Pluto is a planet.
I've also added roles. I literally did it just today, but I've added roles so that you guys can pick whether or not you are a Pluto believer or a Pluto unbeliever. So definitely make that vote in the rules and roles announcements. Definitely check it out.
Shun the non-believers. We also have a fantasy RPG bot that lets you go on your own little mini adventures in the Discord server.
Hey, it's actually very fun. I don't know why, I'm like freaking addicted to it. I'm like level 5 already. It's bad.
We also have a self-promotion channel where you can share your streams and content that could receive a shout out during one of our episodes. We'd also like to make a few shout outs for some of our new listeners who have joined our Discord. Vroom Gal, Becca23, Ace 91189, and Mantacore.
Welcome, guys. Happy to have y'all.
Also, from now on, we'll be announcing a Member of the Week where we show some love to our most active and engaged Discord members. Now, this one was a tough decision as we love all of our members, and mainly because the person in question does not believe Pluto is a planet. So we're at war daily in the Discord. But shout out to Rosebud1999, aka Pluto is not a planet, for being our first member of the week. They have been super active and engaged with the podcast, and we are super appreciative and excited to have them.
That's my friend right there. Whoop, whoop.
Yeah, absolutely. We really appreciate all of the just spark of conversation you bring into the Discord with whenever you're in there.
Exactly. Perfect. Perfectly said.
I met him through, if y'all heard our last episode, I met him through Risk of Rain 2, and we used to play a lot together when I was in college, but we've been friends ever since, and I invited him and he joined, but yeah, hopefully he likes this podcast. I think he does, so welcome.
Yeah, thank you for being a listener. I'm sure eventually I will persuade you that Pluto is a planet. It's going to happen, but I digress. So some of you are probably wondering, what is Radiata Stories, and how have I never heard of it? Well, I should probably start from the beginning. Radiata Stories was released by Square Enix in 2005 on the PS2, and developed by a company named Tri-Ace, whose founders originally worked for Wolf Team and helped develop Tales of Fantasia, before founding their own company, developing their first game, the Star Ocean and Valkyrie Profile series. A few facts about the game. The game was highly anticipated in Japan, receiving Game Awards Future by the Computer Entertainment Suppliers Association in 2004, which they give to games that are expected to be major hits. It was the 12th most pre-ordered game the week of November 17, 2004. It was the 20th most wanted game in early October, but the week before its release, jumped to 3rd. The game sold well in Japan, where it debuted as the top-selling game for 2 weeks, selling 152,000 copies, all of which were pre-ordered.
Wow, that's a lot of copies.
And only 152,000 because they didn't have enough. It sold 12,000 more copies than Devil May Cry 3 in 2005.
Dang.
It also outsold Metal Gear Solid 3, Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green, and Ratchet and Clank 4.
It's crazy how, we just came off of seeing games recently being sold like several million copies, and thinking back that at the time, back in 2004, 152,000 copies is a lot. And then another 12,000 is still a lot.
The fact that they ran out of copies, like they were just like, oh yeah, we'll just make this many copies. That should be more than enough. Because typically when gaming companies are going to release a game, they always make a little extra of what they expect is going to be released. But the fact that many sold and they didn't have enough copies is, wow, that's ridiculous.
In the week of its North American release, it was the top rental on GameFly. It was awarded Game of the Month in Game Informer's October issue in 2005. It was nominated for Role-Playing Game of the Year during the 9th Annual Interactive Achievement Awards. And it was also nominated for Best Role-Playing Game of 2005 by 1UP.
This is really random, but is it Radiata Stories or Radiata Stories?
Radiata Stories.
Okay, I'm probably going to mispronounce it a lot, so I apologize.
It is perfectly fine. There are actually debates over how it's pronounced, so...
Are the debates as hot as the GIF and GIF debate?
Probably not.
There's a GIF and GIF debate?
Oh, there was a big thing for so long of how you pronounce GIF.
I thought
GIF.
it was pronounced. I always thought it was pronounced YIF. So I don't know of no such debate.
now we got a third inclusion in that one.
Oh yes, YIFs.
I know some of you are saying, "Man, Cowboy, this sounds like a pretty awesome game, right?"
No, not at all.
No? Oh, well, we're going to go ahead and end the episode here, guys. Thank you for coming.
I'm totally joking. It sounds very interesting.
Little did we know, Andrew really wanted to start this podcast just so she could pick on us.
Oh yeah. Wait, how'd you find me out? Wait, we're only on episode 3. You can't be finding out just yet. I was saving this for our epic 10th episode at the end here.
Well, guys, hold on to your seats because it gets better. Radiata Story takes place in the land of Radiata. The land has a lot of places you can go with their own environments that are joined together by great bridges. And the center region is Radiata City, where the game starts. The game has 177 recruitable characters, each with their own way to recruit them, their own mini-stories, some easy, some very difficult. And you have to play through the game at least twice to get all the NPCs.
So wait, in the stuff that we read, I read that these NPCs have like their own schedule. Can you explain a little bit more about that piece? Because that really perked my interest.
Oh yeah, so that's actually what I was gonna get to next. So the game has 300 individual NPCs. Not, hey, we're gonna make this character and we're gonna make like 20 copies of him and just change their skin color or change their outfit. No, they sat down and they made 300 completely different NPCs that each have their own lives, their own lifestyles, their own jobs, their own personalities, their own homes, their own dialogues, and their own schedules, which are controlled by the game's day and night system. For example, there's a recruitable character named Natalie. She's a knight of Radiata Castle, and her schedule goes a little like this. At midnight, she can be found in her room. At 5 a.m., she leaves her room for guard duty. At 6 a.m., she's on guard at the 4th floor stairwell of the castle. At noon, she leaves her guard and heads to the meeting room. At 1 p.m., she arrives at the meeting room. And at 7 p.m., she heads back to her room. And each and every character in this game has that.
Interesting. So I don't know why this is kind of giving me vibes about. I'm not trying to change the game or subject, but have you read the article about GTA 6 using like AI to control how the characters act in that game and how they're all going to have their own schedules? It's like it reminds me of that, but all of these characters are individually coded to do this, right? There's no AI involved because when this game was made, I don't think AI was a big thing. Am I right on that?
You're absolutely right. Each one of these
Wow.
characters were meticulously crafted and pathed to have their own schedule. And every single character has a different schedule. They all do different things at different times of the day. And you have to follow each one of these characters to figure out what their schedule is. Because some characters can only be recruited at certain times, in certain places, in certain ways, after saying certain things. And each time you talk to them at different hours, they have different dialogues. It's constantly different. You get a different experience each time.
Interesting. Very interesting. We do like choices in games. That's always a good thing.
And this is from a game that came out in 2005. And that's quite impressive, in my opinion.
So Pokemon, but without actual Pokemon and more advanced people.
I mean,
Not really.
Not really.
I can see where she was going with that, though. Like, you want to catch them all. You want to get all of the recruitable characters.
Right.
But they're not like simplistic. Like, I say my name. No, they have their own backstory and their own history and all that.
Right.
And they're people, and
exactly.
we shouldn't catch them because that's slavery. But that's not the point.
I mean, that we'll save that for the Power World debate.
Oh boy.
But yeah, absolutely.
And also, one thing I'm seeing is that is the longest meeting in the possible ability to have a meeting for. A 6-hour meeting in that meeting room. I would rather just be homeless on the street than have to go to a meeting that long ever.
Yeah, and that's just an example of hers. She actually has. This is just one of her schedules. She has multiple schedules.
Oh shoot! So it's not just the same thing every day. Like they actually have different schedules. Like that depend. Maybe it depends on like if it's a weekday or a weekend or something.
Depending on the day and where you are in the game, the characters' schedules change.
Wow, that's impressive.
So the game also has 2 separate paths with alternate stories and alternate endings that your character can choose along his journey. It even has a feature similar to New Game Plus called Strong from Start, where you start over with your skills, money, and some items. You play as a character named Jack Russell, who leaves his home at 16 to follow in his father's footsteps and become a knight of Radiata Castle. The game starts in somewhat of a Dark Souls-like situation where it puts you in an unwinnable fight with no explanation of how anything works. But as you advance a little bit further, you get a quick tutorial of the game, and it's very simple mechanics. The game is very beginner friendly, and it makes a point to make you actually take the time and understand what's going on. At least it does in the beginning. As you go along in the story, you're able to meet and recruit new friends and search for items in the most unique way that you'd ever think of. Any guesses on what your character does to search for things?
Am I allowed to guess because I read it, or should I just not guess because I know what it is?
You should guess, but don't say what he does if you know.
Does it involve using your feet?
It does. So
do you kill people with your feet?
You don't kill people with your feet.
Oh, dang it.
So he kicks it. He kicks them. He kicks everything. Kicking is one of the most interesting, unique, and honestly fun game mechanics I've seen in any game. Aside from a few chests found across the map, there is no way to identify where items may be. So you literally have to go around and kick everything you can see to find items.
Oh Lord, the completionist in me. Like, if I were to play this game, I would have to, if I go through it, and since I know this now, I have to go through and kick everything now. And God, that's probably gonna take forever, isn't it?
Everything. Everything is kickable. Tables, chairs, walls, lockers, which You might want to be careful with the lockers because, some of the knights are a little, we'll say not PG-13 with their locker.
Oh.
Yeah. So,
no.
so,
Some spicy pictures they hanging up in them lockers, huh?
yeah. There's even a joke made in the game about that. And that
Great.
the attention to detail to this game and what they did with it was fantastic. But what makes it even more fun is you can kick people.
Yes! Yes, it's my absolute dream to have in a game is kicking people. Yes, please continue. Please. Yes, I need to hear more about this.
The first time you kick them, they get annoyed. And in most cases, the second time, you'll have to fight them. But what's even better is some NPCs can only be recruited this way. As you advance through the game, you're able to change your armor and weapons, which also changes your appearance in gameplay, cutscenes, and battle. And you have 2 accessories that give you unique skills that really make or break a fight. For armor, they don't just increase your defense, but they can change your elemental status and give you bonus side effects.
There's elemental abilities in this game?
There are. So your armor, so there's elemental types. Not everything has them. It's not as widespread as you'd see in some RPGs, but it does exist. So fire and water compete with each other, and wind and earth compete with each other. If you attack a water type, you need a fire weapon. If you attack a fire type, you need a water weapon. Same for defense. If you're being attacked by a water type, you don't want to have on fire armor because then you're weak to them.
That makes sense.
And it's the same for weapons. Weapons for this game stand out since your character is not forced to just use one type of weapon. I know that's a big thing with a lot of RPGs. Your character plays a specific type, or you have to choose a specific type, and then for the rest of that time, they only get one type of weapon. But in this game, your character can use one-handed swords, two-handed swords, he can use axes, and he can use spears, each having their own set of moves that you have to learn by using that weapon. So you can go through the whole game only using one-handed swords, and when you switch to axes, you have no moves. You just have the one move that you start out with.
So kind of like Breath of the Wild, how in that game you can collect like a lot of different types of bows and swords, similar to that?
Yeah, you can collect, purchase, however you go about gaining them. Some weapons, armors you find by kicking things. It really brings out something more because each one of these weapons has their own combinations of attack, their own moves, their own abilities, and you only truly master this game by literally using everything. And that's one thing that's so cool. And like armor, weapons don't just increase your strength. They provide you with an elemental alignment and have bonus side effects as well. And each weapon also has a set CP or combo point. As you use your weapons, you learn new moves that have their own cost of combat points that you can use to build your own unique combo attacks and give yourself an edge against your opponent. So you're not stuck doing the same move over and over again. You're even able to change your combo mid-fight so you can adjust as you need. So like you start off with like a left slash and a right slash, but as you go, you learn more moves like a sword uppercut or a jump move where you jump down and you stab your sword into the ground. You can change these because some affect different enemies differently. Like some enemies, a cross slash would work fine, but some enemies you have to do a heavier hitting attack, so you would need to change your combo to reflect the enemy you're facing. So it's a very creative system, and it really forces you to do different things, not just, hey, I'm going to put on my best armor and my best weapon, and I'm just going to go wipe out everything. It don't work.
Question. You said that you can change out like these different abilities mid-fight. How does that work? Like when do you like pull out your inventory or something and then like hit a button or two and it'll change, or how does that all work?
So
Does
yeah,
it freeze time?
when you open your menu, it freezes time basically. You go through to
Okay.
your character summary. You can change your weapons mid-fight. You can change your armor, your accessories. You can change your skills. You can change your combos. You can use items. All of those things can be done in the menu, and basically you just pick up where you left off.
So a lot of the weapons and armors and stuff, like you were saying, they go hand in hand with the elements. So you can essentially walk into a fight very like outmatched, and as soon as you get into that fight and realize, oh, this is bad, you can pause, go to your menu, and switch everything, come out of your menu, and be top tier, like, I'm gonna murk this dude now.
Absolutely. And so there's an item in the game called an analysis ball that you throw at your enemy, and it'll tell you their health, their elemental alignment, and give you information about the enemy. So then you can go into your menu and just change out what you need to change so you're prepared for that fight. And that's what really stood out to me, is that one aspect of this game, it really forces you to build your character the way it needs to be built for each individual fight. Not just, hey, I got the strongest weapon and armor in the game, I'm going to go fight this guy. Well, that armor and weapon might not work against that guy.
So you got to be smart. Yeah, so you got to be smart. So there's more strategy to this RPG than just getting the strongest things in the game. That makes sense.
Absolutely. It's more strategy.
Okay, I have another question.
Mhm.
Sorry.
No,
I'm just curious. So with the just so our viewers know, what kind of graphics, or how would you describe, is it top down? Is it side by side, like platformer? Like, what style is the game in? Can you describe that?
So, one of the cool things about this game that sort of answers this question is that in this game, you see the enemy on the map as you're walking around the world. As you walk around the map, the enemy's right there. You can choose to walk into it or avoid it. Some of them will chase you, some of them won't, but you can always choose whether or not to fight that enemy, except for bosses, of course, because you can't avoid those. But when you're in combat, one of the things that was really cool about this is that it is free movement in this game. So you're running around this battlefield map, usually reflects the environment that you're in, and you can choose to go straight at your enemy. You can pan the camera around the map so you can see what's going on behind you, in front of you, to the left, right. And when you square off with an enemy, you have different things you can do, like parrying, dodging. You can even circle your enemy and keep circling them so they can't hit you. It was really different compared to, at the time, Final Fantasy X came out a few years before, and you had turn-based combat, which not a lot of people like turn-based combat. So they really wanted to stay away from that, and they wanted to give you free reign. And that's one of the big key points of this game, is most of it is pretty much free reign. It's not entirely open world, and the story is a little linear, but as far as gameplay mechanics, you do have a lot of free reign. If you want to completely avoid parts of the story for a long period of time, you are able to do so.
Interesting.
This game sounds a lot more like modern RPGs. Things that a lot of games, they do have that now, where you can pick and choose which storylines you want to attack and which ones you want to ignore for prolonged periods of time. So that's very interesting that it had that back in 2004 and 2005.
Yeah, I mean, it really was. And that's what made this game so highly anticipated, especially being that at this time, this game was competing with games like Kingdom Hearts 2 and Dragon Quest.
Final Fantasy.
Yeah, and Final Fantasy 12, which came out shortly after. It made it so hard for this game to live up to its own hype and really be competitive in those markets, since both of those games Kingdom Hearts 2 and Final Fantasy 12 really blew the market out of the water with what they produce as a game, both of them being exceptional games. So this game is really fun. It's really straightforward. I like to say that this game has Build-A-Bear combat.
I like that. That's funny.
Build-A-Bear combat. Please explain.
Okay, so it has Build-A-Bear combat. You can attack, you can parry, and with successful parries, you can also counterattack. You can backstep. You also have freedom of movement on the battle map, which allows you to circle opponents to dodge attacks. You also have a quick menu to issue commands or items. Your character has a Volti gauge that you can charge by attacking. Each hit gives you 1 Volti point. Volti points can be used to do charge attack called Volti blows. Supercharged attacks with your Volti gauge is called Volti blasts. And Volti points are also used to give party members commands and create link formations. So there's many different things you can do in combat, not just you go up and you attack or you go up and you throw an item at it. No, you have link formations. Link formations are the only way your character can learn new skills. When you start the game, you start out with 1 skill. And honestly, you can go the entire game with 1 skill if you don't know how to use link commands. It also forces you to use different party members. Instead of just using your strongest characters, you have to gain these skills by playing with as many party members as you can.
I'm sitting here thinking about speed runs for this game now, because you're saying all the things that you could do but don't have to do, and it seems like most of the entirety of the game is that you don't have to do anything. You can play the entire game the way you spawned, and yeah, I'm sure it'll make it a lot harder, but you can do a speed run and start your speed run as soon as the game opens.
You could absolutely try to speed run this game. It's not going to go as well as a lot of people would hope because of the cutscenes, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, you could go through this game using your starter armor, your starter weapon, and just don't touch anything else. Get the required party members that just come along with you and just go to the end of the game. And it's been done. But that's one of the great things about this game. It is your choice. You always have a choice. You're not forced to do anything in this game. That's one of the cool things. You really have the opportunity to do whatever you want, explore whatever you want. For completionists like Andromeda, this game is really hard because in order to complete this game, you have to do so much. You have to put hours and hours. I think one of the forums I read said for completionists would take around 120 to 140 hours. And, for a game in 2005, that's a lot. Nowadays, with like Assassin's Creed Odyssey, 140 hours to completion, that's fairly normal. Elden Ring, I think, is a lot more for completion. I would have to look that up, but I do think Elden Ring's 100% completion is even more than 140 hours, mainly because Elden Ring is ridiculous, but I digress again.
I feel like speedrunning, I never really understood. I know some people are like, oh, I get a lot of joy out of speedrunning. I never understood speedrunning games unless, you've already done everything else in the game. I feel like this is one of those games where, yeah, you can speedrun it and you can try to get a really fast time on it, but with all the cutscenes and then all the choices available to you and all the things to explore, because myself, I like survival or exploratory games. So being me, I'm going to take my fresh, fancy time going through and, oh, what's under this rock? Oh, look, there's a butterfly. Can I go kick it? That's what I would do if I played this game.
And you absolutely can. It leaves it up to you. It kind of makes it where you don't want to speedrun it because there's just so many options. There's so many possibilities. You can play this game 100 times and do things 100 different ways. And it really sets you up for that. Now, for the most part in this game, humans and non-humans coexist in a peaceful world. But as the story unfolds, the land falls into war between the human and non-humans.
Ah, yes, lore.
So, alert. And this war forces your character Jack to choose a side. And normally, this would be an easy choice for most knights. You know, you work for the castle, you work for the king. You're going to side with the humans, and you're a human, so you're going to side with the humans. But, like most RPGs starring male characters, there's a girl involved. And
Ooh.
their story goes from rivals to friends until an event occurs that cause Ridley, your character's love interest and ally, to leave Radiata City and side with the non-humans, forcing Jack to decide whether he wants to leave with her or convince himself that she'll eventually come back, and he stays behind and sides with the humans instead. So choosing the human side means that you can no longer recruit non-humans, or vice versa if you follow Ridley and take the non-human side. But like I said earlier, the only way to complete your friends list is by doing both. So you play the game one time through in the human side, one time through the non-human side, and that is the only way to get every playable character or recruit every character.
No, it's interesting because games that have choices in it, especially when it comes to like moral dilemmas, those, there's some people who find those very interesting. And that reminds me of Prey. If you ever played Prey before, Prey is a thing where there are like a lot of different endings based on decisions you make throughout the game. This one is different in that there's a lot of decisions you can make, but there's one pivotal moment that affects, I'm assuming, what's going to be the ending of the game, right?
Yeah. And when you have that, you have so much moral dilemma throughout both sides. If you take the human side or the non-human side, your character is really forced to weigh on, are either side actually right, or does everybody just suck? And that's pretty much the moral focus of this game is anybody even right? Are you right?
I think the answer is that everybody just sucks.
I agree. I think the answer is always everybody just sucks.
That's why we go around and kick everybody. That's the first thing I'll do if I play this game.
Except our listeners, because y'all never suck. We love y'all.
Oh, yeah. I would not kick the listeners. I would kick these two, but I wouldn't kick y'all. Never.
I've been told I'm very kickable.
I have been told things like that as well. But if you decide to go the human path, your journey will be full of fighting non-human creatures like orcs, goblins, elves, and even dragons. Yes, there's dragons.
Oh, heck yeah. Hang on. My interest just went up times 10 if there are dragons.
But if you choose the non-human path, you, at many instances, are at odds and even have to fend off attacks from your former allies and friends. And you still fight dragons.
Still cool.
So along the way, you learn that there's two great dragons, the silver dragon and the gold dragon. There are 7 total dragons, but these are the two main focus of the story. That the silver dragon and the gold dragon, they have a cycle that one sleeps while the other is awake. And in the game, it is currently the age of the silver dragon, Ethereal. But there's one catch. They cannot manifest physically in the plane without a vessel. So each time one of the dragons wakes up, 90% of humanity is wiped out, and humanity has to basically restart life. And you find out the next cycle is soon to start, and Ridley has been chosen to be the next vessel for the Golden Dragon Quasar.
Man, I wish I could get up and just decide to wipe out 90% of all humans, especially ones that annoy me. That would be interesting.
FBI, if you're listening, we don't mean it. We don't want to wipe out humanity.
Oh yeah, it's a joke, y'all. I just, road rage. People can't drive. That kind of deal. They annoy me. So,
So both sides, both stories, whichever you choose, are full of great narrations and cutscenes, a lot of jokes, a lot of fun that really brings together a fascinating world that you get to see from both sides. You get to see everyone's perspective of how they view the world in this game. And when I say great cutscenes, I mean great. There are almost 6 hours of cutscenes in the main game.
Oh my gosh.
6 hours. You cannot skip the cutscenes.
That is great for like a first playthrough, but I feel like I'd get annoyed if I can't skip through them. As beautiful as that sounds.
Which is why I said speedrunning isn't gonna be as easy as one would think.
Shoot, I'd give up after that. 6 hours? Oh no. Bring the popcorn over.
But wouldn't that be kind of a flex to say I completed this game in 6 hours and 5 minutes?
Imagine, that would be a flex.
That would be the ultimate flex. So after you beat the game, you can even continue playing the same game, unlocking a bonus dungeon called Dragon's Lair Cave. And a lot of things happen in this dungeon that I'm not going to spoil because it truly is fun. But some of the coolest things about this dungeon is it contains 4 bonus bosses from other Tri-Ace games, including one that is recruitable. There are a lot of fun bosses in this area, and it's fairly massive with lots of items to be had. So even after you complete the game, there's still hours and hours of more game you can play.
So what I'm getting is that this game is fantasy, romance, weapons and killing things, and bad decisions all wrapped up in one game.
Yeah, and it honestly is. And one of the cool...
And humor. There's humor in it.
Oh, there's a lot of
the
humor. There's a lot of humor. Even your main character, Jack, he is funny. He's outgoing. He makes a lot of jokes. But one thing I really liked about this game, they don't shove the romance down your throat.
Dang it. I like romance.
At no point in time does it say that these two characters are in love. You just get that feeling in your soul that they're in love. And I think that's great. I mean, romance is cool, but I don't want to play a rom-com. Some people like that, some people don't. I personally, I don't. I don't want to play a rom-com. So I like that they let you come to your own conclusion by building a story that really makes you feel it. And after you complete the game, you get one of 2 endings. With the human ending, Jack seems to give up his knighthood and he goes home with what appears to be regret. After everything is said and done, Ridley is killed by Aphelion and it prevents the next cycle from happening. But at the same time, he saved humanity and ridded the world of dragons at the cost of his own love. And it really plays on that when you see how they portrayed the character and how you can feel the regret and, I guess, animosity coming from him and him questioning whether he really made the right choice. But you have to decide that for yourself. In the non-human ending, Ridley and Jack return to a ghost town of Radiata City, with Jack having a ghostly voice and Ridley glowing. And when the end credit scenes roll, it shows Radiata City completely empty with no signs of life. And this brings up many possible outcomes that are still argued about to this day on forums. Whereas in the human ending, when you leave Radiata, there's many people, it's full, it's bustling. In the non-human ending, it appears there's no one. But it doesn't say there's no one. It just, you get that feeling.
Dang. So either way, it's a bad ending either way almost. Because if the dragon possesses or uses Ripley, is it Ripley? Ridley as a vessel, then technically he loses his love either way, doesn't he?
Well, in the ending where Ridley survives, the non-human ending, they're seen hand in hand walking through town. But a lot of the forums talk about whether either one of them actually survived, because it never shows them getting away in the non-human ending. It shows the dragon's tower collapsing, and then it just shows them in town. And when you hear Jack give his final speech telling Ridley, let's go home, his voice sounds echoey and distant, like he's not actually there. And
Dang.
and it's very difficult to tell. You have to go frame by frame. But when you watch the ending, it appears as if Jack is like fading away as he's talking. And it's really great. And at the same time, Ridley starts glowing, which makes you feel like she did end up getting possessed by the dragon and all of humanity was in fact wiped out. And that's one of the cool things, because no matter which path you choose or which ending you get, the game concludes in a way that leaves you wondering what happened, as it doesn't give you any clear answers intentionally, leaving how the story plays out ultimately to your own imagination.
Wow. That's deep.
All right, guys, so at this point, we are going to go ahead and take our intermission. Go ahead and stretch your legs, get you a drink, pull you out some popcorn, because we will be back to talk about more. Welcome back, listeners. So while we were on our intermission there, we were discussing and we did a little bit of research and looking things up. Thank you, Ranger, for the assistance. So we found that Radiata Stories' average 100% completion time is 115 hours. And just for grins, we looked up Elden Rings as well, which came out to how many hours did you say it was, Ranger?
133.
133 hours. So considering Radiata Stories was a game invented in 2005, that's truly exceptional that this game rivaled one of the hardest games to complete in Elden Ring. And that's an impressive number. Most games you can complete 60 to 70 hours, even to 100%.
It definitely speaks to the fact that like the story and the gameplay itself can last that long, because in my experience Elden Ring only takes that long because it's so challenging, whereas Radiata Stories, it sounds like it's more of a, like, there is a challenge to it. I'm not saying there's no challenge, but it sounds like it's more of a story driven game, and the fact that it takes almost as long to 100% it as it would a game that is designed to be just difficult is, I think, really impressive.
And what makes that number even more impressive, in order to 100% complete Elden Ring, you have to play the game 5 times. Whereas Radiata Stories, you only have to play it twice.
Talking about challenge level, I know you mentioned something about enemies, and you talked about bosses. I know it's not on the level of Elden Ring, obviously, but how difficult is it to defeat these bosses? Like, if I were to just charge in there and not worry about all these link commands and strategy and stuff like that, how difficult are these bosses typically?
Yeah, so that we'll weigh a little heavier into that here in a little bit, but the game itself is honestly not difficult. It is very beginner friendly. It is very user friendly. You can beat this game without much difficulty.
Okay, I was just curious.
A lot of it, like we said earlier, is strategic based. So the only difficulty you'll have in this game is if you just don't care enough to play the game as it was intended. If you just go through and say, hey, I'm going to take my first sword, my first shield, or my first armor, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to do whatever I want. Can you do it? Yes. Is the game going to become harder? Yes. Now, if you play the game how you should, getting your levels in, paying attention to elemental affiliations and stuff like that, then it becomes a little easy, which again, like I said, we'll talk about that in a little bit, because there's a reason why this game isn't as popular as it should be. So, what did y'all think about that so far? What we discussed?
All right, ladies first, which means Ranger, you're up.
Oh,
Look, I like to talk. If you want to give me the floor first, I will take it.
Go for it, Ranger.
I think that this game sounds very, as you said, user friendly, but not in a way that makes the game handholdy and easy. Like a lot of games these days, when they're user friendly and new player friendly, what ends up happening is they will hold your hand for the first 60% of the game and then point you in the exact right direction to finish the game for the last 40%. And it's not like you're playing the game, it's more like you're being walked through the game. So it sounds very much not that, and that sounds really good to me.
and you're absolutely on the nose with that. The game isn't hold your hand at all. One of your first things you have to do is you have to go to the meeting room. No way, shape, and form does it tell you where this meeting room is. It just tells you it's on the 3rd floor. And you got to figure out where the hell you're going. So you run around the castle. The first time I played the game, I spent a good hour searching the castle to try to find this meeting room.
How many times did you walk past it?
A lot. But that's the big thing about going to every room and kicking everything. You find what you're looking for eventually. And that's it's so cool to me that the game is easy, but it doesn't hold your hand. It's like, hey, we want you to play this game as if you're actually experiencing this. You're a new knight in a new castle that you've never been in before, and someone told you, hey, you got a meeting on the 3rd floor. And you're like, okay, but where the fuck is that? Excuse my language. And you're like, where is that? And that's a really great part of this game. It doesn't hold your hand. You got to figure out what you're doing. And I loved it. It was exciting. Very Elden Ring-like, because, in Elden Ring, it don't tell you nothing. You have no idea what you're doing, where you're going. You just go.
Yeah, when I started Elden Ring, I was sitting there like, okay, I'm pretty sure in most sword fighting / shooting games nowadays, right trigger is your weapon. So I'm going to try that.
Elden Ring really, really didn't hold your hand at all.
I will go ahead and pass the mic over to Andro because that was all I really gathered, like, intensely. That was the only thing that really stuck out to me, was that it was not hard, but it also didn't hold your hand.
Yeah, I kind of noticed the same thing. While you were talking, I kind of have like a few questions here and there. Some for reviewers, some for just me because I'm curious by nature, unfortunately. But I have a lot of questions. So my first thing, this isn't really a question, it's just something I noticed. When you were explaining the link commands with like your party, for some reason a picture in my head popped up of like, I don't know if whenever you have a football coach and like a football team and they're going over positions on the field and like setups, for some reason that's what came to mind when you were explaining link commands. Is that kind of what link commands are? Like kind of like setting up on a football field but with your party members?
That is actually the best way to describe it. You have your party members. You can't physically control your party members. You can only give them orders. And link commands really ties that in by saying, hey, this formation. So you want to attack everybody to attack one person. You can give a link command to surround that person and attack just that person. And a little exclamation point will pop up above one of their heads if they're about to attack, and you can attack them at the exact same time. It'll give you a little bonus, and it's really cool. You have so many different formations. Like you have one that you can use to guard an ally that's like low on health. So you'll have the others guarding them while you're, giving them an item to heal or having one use a spell to heal. That's another thing. There's not a lot of magic in this game. Your character doesn't have magic, but there are magical players you can recruit that do spells. You can't control what they do per se. You can say, "Hey, do this." They might do it, they might not do it. It's one of the fun parts of the game.
Okay, so next question. And this is kind of for Ranger, honestly. Hey, Ranger, if we were to both get this game and we were to play it, on your first playthrough, which side are you going to take? Are you going to take the human side or the non-human side? I want to hear your answer.
Non-human side.
Me too! Yes, frick the humans.
I think that's everybody's first choice playing this game was the non-human side, because, you know, honestly, to me, in my opinion, the non-human side had such a better story. And, you really see on the human side how much of how big an asshole humans can be in general.
Gosh.
And it's true. It's the non-human side, though. You can see that they're not in the right in a lot of things. But that, like I said earlier, that's one of the big things that weigh on you throughout this game, is that there is no honestly good guy or bad guy.
All right. Yeah, so that was one of the questions I had. And another question, I'm kind of layering two questions into this. This is kind of for our viewers. Number one, does this game have a multiplayer option? And number two, what consoles can we get this game on? Just out of curiosity.
So the first question I will go ahead and answer. The second question we'll find out a little bit later in this episode. So the first question, this game is not multiplayer in any way, shape, or form.
I thought you were the multiplayer guy.
I am not the multiplayer guy. I hate playing multiplayer unless I have other people playing with me. I would much rather play by myself in a single player game. If it's a multiplayer game and I don't have somebody ready to go, say, hey, let's hop on. Like, that's why I haven't played Helldivers in the past couple weeks, is my buddies that I play Helldiver with, they've just been busy and we just haven't really had time to play. And I have no intention of doing it by myself because it's not as fun.
Interesting. Yes. I don't have a lot of friends in general, so I play a lot of single player games too.
What? You got us, and
I got y'all.
All of our friendly Discord members and our lovely listeners.
I guess I mean people that have the same games, that like the similar games I do, so that we can play them together.
You're in so many Discords. I'm absolutely sure that you could find somebody to play with you on pretty much any game.
How do you know I'm in that many Discords, though? That's the first question.
Because you talk about it a lot.
And, we've seen you talk in a lot of the Discords that we share, because we're also in a lot of Discords.
Makes sense.
I can't even open my full Discord list without 5 folders. It's ridiculous. I have 8 folders, and each of them have 10 things in them.
Okay, I'm gonna freak you out. I don't have any folders. They're all just lined up.
Yeah, I can't do that. I would be scrolling forever trying to find all the Discords that I need to get in.
The unorganization there is giving me a little bit of anxiety right now.
Yeah, I only have 4 Discords that aren't in folders, and those are the 4 that I'm on, and 2 of them I own, so...
I thought I was supposed to be the anxious one.
So, let's move on and talk about the game's music. The soundtrack was composed by Noriyuki Iwadari, and this was a first for Tri-Ace, is that most of their games were all produced by the same person. This was the first time they actually stepped out and had someone else do it. And the original soundtrack was 2 CDs with 79 songs.
On each CD, or?
No, in total.
Oh, okay.
And shortly after, it was remastered. 16 of the songs were remastered. Game Informer even said the soundtrack was a masterpiece. But one of the cool facts about Radiata Story is that the theme song for the Japanese version of the game, called Fortune, was sung by a Japanese pop star, Nami Tamaki. They even made a playable character named after her that she voiced in the Japanese version of the game.
I like that. That's cool. Real life people doing video game things and stretching their wings and getting into a little bit of voice acting. That's really cool.
I agree. That's really cool. I mean, it's not every day. I mean, imagine, I've seen stuff. I don't know if y'all know who Markiplier is. He's one of my favorite streamers. But there are some games that put him in the game, and it's just really cool seeing big idols like that in these tiny little video games. It's cool.
And The American version of Nami was changed into a character named Rachel, who is the adult alter ego of a young magic school student named Cornelia. And what's cool thing about Cornelia and Rachel, they are two characters in one. Or every night, Cornelia turns into Rachel so she can sing the night away. That's literally her big thing for her story, is that she's a little girl, she's young, she went to magic school at 12 years old, she's like a prodigy, and she turns herself into someone else, into an adult, so that she can go do something that she loves, which is singing in clubs and show halls that she does in the game. You actually have to find her. One of the trickiest things recruiting her is you have to do it at a exact specific minute of the game.
So basically, Hannah Montana / Miley Cyrus is in the game.
Yep, pretty much. You have to recruit her at exact minute with her doing an exact specific thing, and that's wild. In an exact specific place. So it's very
Lovely.
time sensitive. And she also transforms in your party. So when you're running around during the day, she's Cornelia. She does magic, all these things. But at night, when she's in your party, she's Rachel. And they each have different dialogues and different voices, which was pretty fascinating. That you have the exact same character that turns into another person, has a completely different voice actor, has completely different dialogues, has completely different skills, has completely different attacks.
So
That's pretty cool.
So Andrew, your comment made me curious, so I looked. The Hannah Montana TV series came out in 2006.
So it was Hannah Montana before Hannah Montana.
Wow. So they stole the idea from this game. I knew it.
Oh crap. That's awesome. Another cool fact about this game, there were 2 5-issue manga series released that were based on the game. One about Jack, one about Ridley.
I'd read that. I would 100% would read that.
So that brings us into our next topic. So this game sounds pretty great. I mean, it's pretty fascinating. It has unique stuff that didn't exist in its time. So why did the game fail? Why is the game so unheard of? Well, Radiata Stories was met with mixed emotions and mixed feelings, as people really wanted the game to be more clearly defined. A lot of what happened in the game was left for interpretation. Even some of the cutscenes had plot holes that didn't really make sense or wasn't explained because the developers wanted you to decide. A lot of it was vague. You were set to interpret what that character meant or what that character was thinking, which for me, I enjoyed because I love diving deeper into the lore and trying to understand and trying to figure it out. But a lot of people and a lot of reviews just called it lazy writing.
So basically, there is such a thing as giving too much free reign in a video game.
Apparently, as far as reviewers are concerned, yes. And to me, it's so undeserved. I mean, like I said, there's still posts and forums to this day. I saw one that people were talking about this game just this week, and there's still people arguing over what cutscenes mean and what interpretations you can find and the endings, and it's all there. But I guess some people are just so used to, straightforward, and this is what's happening and this is what you're doing, and it just wasn't as received as it should have been. And like I said, this is a game that was the number 3 most anticipated game and then just disappeared.
Well, and also I think that can come back to the time that it came out, right? Because the freedom to choose and create your own story, medium that we have now, because that is a lot of how the games play that we play now. That was not big then. Like that was not very done. Like it wasn't done often. And so
there wasn't like choices to make. So like back then when video games were big, it was like, hey, look, a video game, let's play it. Oh, this is fun, stomp on this mushroom, race around a racetrack, kill things. Oh, this is great. You you didn't need to think about the implications of story and lore and making choices. It was just play a game to have fun. Now it's opened up to a whole new perspective where you have games where there are choices involved and there are actual moral dilemmas that you face in these video games. I don't know if y'all have ever heard of Undertale. Undertale was one of probably the very first games that kind of opened this reach of putting more of a moral turpitude, so to speak, into these games and making choices. Would y'all agree with that?
And that's exactly right. I think that was one of the biggest problems with Radiata Story is that if it came out today with improved gameplay that kind of matched today's, feel, but not cutting away from what it is, I think it would do very well today.
I would say it would argue the top selling games on the market right now, because that's something that back then story games were king. Now multiplayer and choice development games are king.
Yeah, I agree.
So another issue that people had with Radiata Story is that most people felt the game was too easy, which in some way it is, but the game isn't about being unbeatable. It's about telling a story and being creative in how you play it.
It's like slowing the pace down, because for a lot of people, a lot of people like games like Doom where they're constantly going and doing something and killing things and very fast paced, But this is one of those games where it's not necessarily easy, it's just slower paced,
Yeah,
more choices involved.
it was more of a comfort game
Yeah,
that
basically.
had aspects of violence and combat and all that in it. And, one of the other big complaints that I saw the majority of was that the game has save points, right? You have save points in a bed where you sleep at night. And that's mainly it. You have a save point in your bed, and occasionally, if you've been out for a long period of time, a save point will pop up randomly on the map. But that's it. You don't have a lot of options to save your game. And there's not always a save before fighting a boss. So there's a chance you can play this game and lose a battle because you didn't prepare, or you didn't change your stuff right, and you could lose an hour to 2 hours of gameplay. And that was a huge setback for a lot of people. And in this case, I do agree there should have been more save points, but I don't feel it was deserved because Final Fantasy X was the exact same way. They had more save points than this game does around the map, but you could go a long time in even Final Fantasy X without a save and lose a big chunk of your game. And I don't think people were more nitpicky than they were understanding what the game was meant to be. And it was meant to be you personally feeling like you're actually on this adventure.
I actually like the fact that it doesn't have very many save points. I feel like that forces you to rely more on that strategy stuff we were talking about and to take your time and to be more careful. Like, I actually like the fact that it doesn't have a lot of save points. I think it matches very well with that game in specific.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the fence. I'm sitting here trying to decide. I like games where you can save before a boss, but also I enjoy the thrill of having to fight this boss, not know what I'm looking into, and go back and going, okay, I think I know what I did and what I don't want to do again this time, and then rebuilding those last 2 hours of gameplay. Because I'll do that in most games I play now, where I'll start a game, get 2 or 3 hours in, and be like, I made some bad choices in that first hour that are affecting me now. I'm going to start my game over.
Another thing was, I talked a little while ago about how the cutscenes and all that, there's a lot of plot holes in it that was kind of left for you to figure out for yourself. Well, a Reddit user named James Garrick data mined the original game, and he found that there's an extra 2 hours of cutscenes that really explain a lot of the plot holes to the story, including a lot of unused Volti blasts that you don't get to see that would have really been a cool addition. So they didn't rush it. They weren't lazy about it. It was all there. It just they went the route that they felt was best. And me personally, I agree with it. I agree with the game as it is. I love the game as it is. And it had new content for both paths, the human path, the non-human path. And I feel like it was not treated the way it should have been. And that brings us to our final little point here about Radiata Stories. Is I want to give a shout out to a YouTuber named Revive Radiata. He has a video on YouTube talking about Radiata Stories. It's not a long video, but it's a very good video where he really nails what Radiata Story is. And he went out and put a petition out for Radiata Stories to be brought to current consoles. And you should definitely give him a listen, see what he has to say. Please, if you can, go sign that petition. Let's get Radiata Stories brought to Xbox or PS5 or even PC. Because to answer your second question earlier, there is nowhere that you can play Radiata Stories currently today unless you go out and buy a PS2 and find the game somewhere on eBay or at a game store.
Dang, so it's not even on the store, like on the PS store? Or?
PlayStation did not release Radiata Stories in its inclusion of old classic games. The only way currently is, like I said, to find a PS2 and find the game, or to download an emulator on your PC. And that's it. That's the only options you have. And I think that's terrible. This game has so much potential in today's market. I think people nowadays would love it. But unfortunately, that's just where we're at, which is why I really push, please, please, please sign this petition. Let's get Square Enix to release this game again. It is so good. You won't regret it. And it's something we all truly treasure. I will be putting the link to the petition and the link to Revive Radiata's stuff into the description.
How many signatures are on it so far?
I believe last time I looked, there was almost 6,500, 6,600 signatures. Maybe
That's
a little
not
more.
bad.
No, it's got a good go to it, and he's really pushing for it. And kudos to him because, like I said, this is a game I truly love. I'm a big Final Fantasy guy. I don't stray away from Final Fantasy all that much. I play Final Fantasy at least once a week. No matter what else I'm playing, I always go back to Final Fantasy. But this game, if it was on PS5 right now, I would break my bank and drive to GameStop or wherever and buy a PS5 just to play this game. 100% recommend y'all signing this petition, checking out his channel. Like I said, I'll leave links in the description about his channel, this petition, but definitely give it a check. Last thing we're going to talk about is we have a question for the show from one of our listeners.
Yeah, so I just thought we'd let you know. So for now on, we're going to do like a question like what we're doing now. Every episode we have, we're going to choose one or two questions from that questions list that y'all speak into, and we'll answer it for you guys. It can be anything about video games, or it can be maybe like a more not personal question, but a question like, oh, what's your favorite type of ice cream? Or, all that jazz. So we'll be doing that every episode. So if you have any questions you'd like us to answer, whether it's gaming related or not, please feel free to reach out, put your question in the Discord channel, and we'll do that. All right, go ahead and continue.
So we don't want people asking how old we are.
Obviously not, no.
So exactly that. Go join our Discord if you haven't already. We have a channel in there called Question for the Host. Feel free to ask us whatever you want. You can ask me how old I am. I might laugh, I might not. I'm old, but it's okay. But definitely feel free to reach out, join our Discord, talk to us. We're very friendly people. At least these two are. I like to say I'm just here so I don't get fined. But
the big three no questions. Don't ask if I'm pregnant. Don't ask how much I weigh, and don't ask how much money I make. Okay? End of story. Don't put those in there. I will ban you.
So the question for the show was asked by Hot Death 101. His question was, what if you take one of your favorite video games of all time and then think of an important event or interaction in it? How would you change that event or interaction to play out different? what would be some of the changes in the game that would occur from it?
Ooh, well, I already have mine if y'all want to go ahead and give me the floor.
Go ahead.
Okay, so Halo. Y'all know I'm a Halo person. And Halo, I think it was Halo 3 or 4, can't remember. It was in one of those games, it's been a minute, where basically Master Chief loses Cortana, and because that happens, Cortana becomes like the bad guy because she ends up siding with the Forerunners. If they don't lose each other at all and they just stay together, I feel like it would have been better because number one, Halo 5 and Halo Infinity wouldn't have been released, and I did not like either one of those games very much. So that's one good thing to come from it. And second off, I just think they're like when you think best video game teams, that's like one of my top. Okay, you can't separate them and make them enemies when they've been together for like 3 or 4 games, even more than that technically. So that's one thing I would probably change for sure is Cortana and Master Chief sticking together.
That's awesome. Wanted to change the game just to kill 2 releases after. I love
Those
it.
2 releases were not good in my opinion. I mean, I didn't play it for the multiplayer, but some people are like, "Oh, Halo Infinity is better now," and I'm just like,
No.
"Shush your pothole! It sucks compared to the first 3 games." Yeah, no, we're good.
Yeah, the Infinity multiplayer.
Just kill that off with Halo 3.
The Infinity multiplayer, I just kind of played for a little bit and then was like, "This isn't Halo. This is not what I remember Halo being. I'm done now."
Right. After game 3, I was pretty much done with Halo. I remember Halo 1 on Xbox. I had so much fun. We played it nonstop. And one of the coolest things I loved about a Halo game was the multiplayer, but I did play the story a lot as well. And one of my favorite challenges that I did was to try to beat the game on the hardest difficulty using only a pistol weapon. And I remember it took me, I think, 8 months of trying this to actually do it.
Oh my gosh. Wait, which one was this? I'm sorry.
I think it was Halo 1 and 2 I did it on. I don't think I did it on 3.
Oh my gosh. Halo 1 would be rough. I
And
mean,
it
I beat it on
was.
hard. I beat it on hard difficulty, but I don't know if I could do it with no pistol. Golly.
Yeah, only the pistol. If you ran out of ammo, you had to find another one. And it was such a challenge. Just getting past the first few levels took me weeks. The first few areas, it took me weeks. It was a challenge, but it was fun. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I like making challenges out of games. Ranger, what would you change?
I would pick Destiny 2 because
Ooh.
this one particular part has hurt me to my soul since it happened. I would change them killing Cade 6 because he was the comedic relief for the entire series, and they haven't really found it again. There is some comedy, but there is not like as much as there was with Cade. He was also the Hunter Vanguard spokesperson, and I played Hunter class, and so I took that as a personal assault. They killed off my leader, and I was not happy about it. It would have changed. I think it also would have changed a lot as far as storyline goes had they picked a different person. But it was, I don't know, it was very impactful, and it's really hard to think about how unpacked that would have been had he lived. It would have just been another epic moment.
I wonder what Native and Sweaty would say to that, honestly. So, Native and Sweaty, if you're listening, tell us if you agree with Ranger.
I think
on this
Sweaty would
subject
agree with
matter.
me 100%, and Native would say that they killed the right character.
Of course he would. Of course he would.
So for me, and the reason why I chose this question out of anything else is specifically for this game. I would change the ending for the non-human ending. And there's a part after you defeat the final boss, Aphelion, that your best friend in the game and your former commander, Gans, his father dies trying to help y'all. And instead of leaving with you, he stays there with his father's corpse or body, however you want to put it. And he just stands there and lets the tower collapse on him. So no matter which ending you choose, you lose someone that you absolutely love and cherish. In the human ending, you lose your love in Ridley. And in the non human ending, you lose your best friend. So no matter what, there's so much sacrifice in this game. For me personally, since the entirety of humanity is erased, I personally, would have let him survive. But as far as what it would have changed to the story, I don't think it would have changed anything other than our emotions. Because no matter what, even if he did leave with you, you're still left with the feeling, well, did he still get erased? Did he still die anyways when the rest of humanity or 90% of humanity was wiped out? And that will always weigh on you. But I would rather have that weighing on me than just, hey, why are you just standing there? What are you doing? Wait, no. Why? No. Because he's an awesome character throughout the game. He's hilarious. He's goofy. He's your boss, but he really honestly just feels like another one of the guys because he's not a great leader. You can definitely tell he's new to it, and just like your main character, he's trying to live up to his father's identity and his father's legacy, who used to be a former legendary knight, just like Jack's father. So that would be the one thing I would change about this game is, instead of us seeing him die like he did, let us wonder what happens.
That's deep, but I like that. I think that's a good thing to change.
I can get deep sometimes. I'm not always the goofy cowboy that I am. But we're going to close things up. We're going to say, hey, y'all, just like I said, come check out our Discord. We have polls that come up every now and then. Andromeda put one out last week talking about what is the most important aspect of a video game, whether it's lore, music, game mechanics, visuals, or multiplayer. And so far, game mechanics has won out. And I agree personally. I think game mechanics is a very big aspect of a game. If you have a great story and terrible game mechanics, you have a terrible game.
I will be releasing another one not too long after we finish this episode, actually. I'll be releasing another poll. And some of these questions may mean squat, but some of these questions we may bring up in an episode, or we may try to cater to what you guys would like. We do try to give y'all what y'all want, right, y'all?
Yeah, and that brings up the next point. Come tell us what you want us to talk about. If you have ideas, if you have feedback, we have channels for that. Come tell us what you want to hear, and we'll make it happen if we can. We may even bring you on to talk about what you want to talk about. We want to hear your passion just like we want y'all to hear ours. So, we'll have the link for the Discord in the description, but I think that's going to be it for us today. So thank you for listening. We are always glad to have you at the Astronaut Arcade, where we take one small step for man and one giant leap for gamerkind.